The smell of vanilla filled the air. It was quiet, except for the soft clinking of dishes in the kitchen. Maya opened her eyes slowly, feeling the warmth of the morning sun touch her skin. Today was her 38th birthday. She didn't expect anything grand, just peace. That alone was enough. From the kitchen, her 10-year-old daughter Layla peeked around the door, holding a small plate with toast and scrambled eggs. "Happy birthday, Mommy," she said with a wide smile. Maya sat up, heart full, as Layla placed a handmade card on the bed. The words were written in colourful marker, "To the best mom in the world." It was a moment Maya would remember for the rest of her life. Then footsteps echoed down the hallway, sharp, confident. Ethan, her husband, walked in wearing a crisp shirt. No tie, no smile. He didn't even glance at Layla. His hands held a large brown envelope. He placed it on the bed next to Maya and stepped back. "I think it's time," he said. "I want a divorce." The words landed like a slap. Maya stared at him, her face still, her breath caught in her throat. For a second, the room froze. Layla stopped chewing, her small eyes darting between her parents. She didn't understand what was happening, but she felt the change in the air. Maya slowly picked up the envelope, her fingers trembling just a little. Ethan turned and walked out of the room like he was closing a door, not just behind him, but on their life together. The silence returned, heavier this time. Layla spoke quietly. "Mommy, what does that mean?" Maya didn't answer right away. Her eyes followed Ethan out of the room. Then, as if something inside her shifted, she looked down at the envelope, her lips forming a slight smile. Not the smile of a woman who had just been broken, but one who had been waiting. "He has no idea," she whispered to herself. "No idea what I already set in motion." This birthday was just the beginning. Maya Foster used to be a corporate legal assistant, sharp, quick with details, always 2 steps ahead. But after her daughter Layla was born, she stepped back from work to focus on raising her child. It was meant to be temporary, just a few years. But those years stretched on, and slowly, without even realizing it, Maya found herself in a world that felt smaller and smaller. She lived in a quiet, upper-class part of Atlanta. Big houses, shiny cars, neighbors who smiled but never really looked you in the eye. Everyone saw Ethan, her husband, as a success, a real estate developer, charming at dinner parties, always saying the right thing at the right time. To outsiders, he was a good man, a strong provider. But behind closed doors, Maya saw something else. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't throw things, but he chipped away at her, little by little. "Why are you so sensitive? It's not a big deal. You're overreacting as usual." He made her question her own feelings. He handled all the money and made sure Maya knew just enough to keep her quiet, but not enough to have any power. At first, Maya thought it was just marriage, that maybe this was how people grew apart. But then came the silence, the long stretches of no affection, no warmth. He became colder, like a stranger, and when he did speak, his words always had a sharp edge. One day, 6 months before her birthday, Maya was helping Layla with her homework when she picked up Ethan's tablet by mistake. A message popped up, just a few words, but it was enough. "Can't wait to see you again, babe. Last night was everything." It was from Alana, his assistant. Her hands shook. She wanted to scream. She wanted to break things, but she didn't. Instead, she took a deep breath and smiled at her daughter. That night, after Layla went to bed, Maya opened her old laptop. She hadn't touched it in years, but she knew what to do. She emailed one of her classmates from law school, Cynthia, now a respected divorce lawyer in the city. Cynthia didn't ask many questions. She just said, "Come see me," and start collecting everything. So Maya did. She began keeping records, quietly. Bank statement, travel receipts, emails, messages. She backed everything up in cloud storage. She started looking through the documents Ethan never thought she'd understand. And she found things, hidden accounts, money being transferred, signs that he was already preparing for life without her. But she stayed quiet. She smiled at the neighbors, went to church, picked Layla up from school, played the role, all while building her case step by step. Even her sister Michelle thought Ethan was a good man. "He's just stressed," she would say. "You have a good life, Maya." Maya never responded. She didn't argue. She just kept her mouth shut and her eyes open. She watched Ethan walk in late at night, smelling like perfume. She heard him whispering in the bathroom with the door closed. He thought she was clueless. He thought she was weak. He didn't know the fire she'd been holding back. For years, Maya believed in forgiveness, in family, in holding things together. But now, her heart had changed, not just for her, but for Layla. Her daughter deserved a mother who wasn't afraid, a home where peace wasn't fake, a life where love didn't mean being silent. So she waited, she planned, she smiled when she had to. And on her 38th birthday, when Ethan finally handed her those papers, thinking he was ending her life, he didn't know. He was just stepping into the game she'd already begun to win. That afternoon, the doorbell rang. Maya opened the door to find her sister, Michelle, standing there with a worried look and a plastic bag filled with jollof rice and fried plantain. Michelle stepped inside quickly, giving Maya a tight hug. "I heard," she said softly. "I can't believe he did this on your birthday." Maya forced a small smile and nodded, her eyes lowering to the floor. She played the part well, quiet, shaken, the woman left behind. They sat on the couch. Michelle talked a lot, trying to cheer her up. Men like Ethan, they always think they're kings. "You'll be okay. You're strong." Maya just nodded, barely saying a word. Inside, her heart was calm, steady. She had cried already, not for Ethan, but for what she once hoped their marriage could be. Now, there were no more tears, only action. After Michelle left, Maya stood by the living room window until her sister's car disappeared down the road. Then, she walked to the bedroom and closed the door behind her. The room was quiet. She walked to the wardrobe and bent down, pulling out an old shoebox from behind a pile of folded blankets. Inside was something Ethan never knew about. She placed it on the bed and opened it. Inside were papers, neatly arranged, and a small flash drive in a black case. One of the documents was printed boldly at the top. Contingency plan, Foster vs. Foster. She touched the page, her eyes scanning details she had been building quietly for months. Every transaction, every message, receipts, wire transfers, late-night hotel stays. She had it all. She had even printed screenshots of Ethan's offshore bank activity, money being funneled to an account in the British Virgin Islands, under a business name Maya had traced back to Ethan and his assistant Alana. Ethan thought she didn't understand money. He used to laugh when she asked about investments. "It's complicated," he'd say. "You wouldn't get it." But Maya had always paid attention. Even when he thought she wasn't looking, she picked up her small burner phone, the one she bought with cash, the one not tied to her name or location. She scrolled through the short list of contacts and tapped on Cynthia. The phone rang once, then again. "Hello?" A calm voice answered. "He made the first move," Maya said, her voice low and firm. "It's time. Initiate step 2. There was a short pause on the line. Then, "Understood. We'll file by Friday. Let's freeze that offshore account before he hides more. I'll call you back tonight." Maya ended the call. Her fingers were steady. She looked around the room, at the bed where she once dreamed of a happy marriage, at the mirror that had watched her break and rebuild herself in silence. This wasn't the story of a heartbroken woman begging for answers. This was the story of a woman who saw the truth, faced it, and chose to fight quietly. Maya sat down and picked up a pen. On the back of the contingency plan, she wrote one line. "Power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers and waits." Ethan thought he had won, but he had no idea what Maya had already put in motion. The letter came in a white envelope, stamped with a lawyer's seal. Maya sat on the kitchen stool, the same spot she used to help Layla with homework. She read every word slowly. Ethan was filing for full custody. No shared parenting. Nothing for Maya. His claim? She was unemployed, emotionally unstable, and unfit to care for their daughter. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. Instead, she folded the letter neatly and placed it in the drawer with the rest of the paperwork she had been collecting for months. She knew Ethan would try something like this. It was just like him, to take, to control, to punish her for not being weak. He thought she had nothing, no money, no plan, no one to fight for her. But Maya had Cynthia, not just a friend. Cynthia was one of the most respected family lawyers in the state, and Ethan didn't know that Maya had been working with her since the day she discovered his affair. The next day, Maya arrived at the courthouse with quiet confidence. She wore a plain dress and soft makeup, her head held high. Ethan walked in, wearing a designer suit, his lawyer beside him, smug and relaxed. He didn't even look at her. In his eyes, the fight was already won. Until Maya introduced Cynthia, the smile faded from Ethan's face. Cynthia laid out the facts, calmly, precisely, offshore accounts, hidden transactions, property bought in another woman's name. And when the judge asked if Maya had any income or support, Cynthia placed a folder on the table. Inside was proof of freelance legal work Maya had done quietly over the past 6 months, enough to show stability. Outside the courtroom, things got messier. Maya sent an anonymous email to the board of Ethan's company. Attached were the same documents: proof of misused company funds, affairs, lies, the kind of scandal that could ruin a man's name in business. Soon, whispers started. Clients pulled out. Partners became cold. Ethan came home one evening and threw a chair across the room. Layla was in the hallway and saw everything. Maya didn't shout. She held Layla close, whispered, "You're safe," and wrote everything down: dates, times, words. She even had a small recorder tucked into her purse. Everything was being documented. At night, when Layla was asleep, Maya would go through her daughter's school bag. Hidden in the pages of her drawing book were small pictures, Layla's way of expressing what she couldn't say out loud. One picture showed a house split in two. One side had Maya and Layla holding hands. The other side showed Ethan, drawn with a frown, standing alone with dark clouds over his head. In Layla's diary, Maya found a note. "Daddy shouts when people don't listen. Mommy is quiet, but she listens all the time." The pain wasn't just in court. It was in the heart of their home. Maya wasn't just fighting for custody. She was fighting for her child's peace. Sometimes, in the quiet hours of the night, Maya would sit by herself and remember. She remembered the first time she caught Ethan cheating, how he turned it around and said, "You're too emotional. She's just a friend." She had believed him, forgiven him, told herself that marriage had ups and downs. She remembered standing in front of the mirror one night, repeating his words in her head, until she started to believe she was the problem, that she wasn't enough. It took therapy to undo all of that, to find her voice again. Her therapist had told her, "Your silence is not your strength if it's keeping you from safety." That was the day Maya began to fight back, slowly, quietly. To the outside world, she played her role well. She still attended church, smiled at neighbors, acted like she was putting herself back together. People pitied her. They whispered about the poor woman Ethan left. But behind closed doors, Maya was documenting everything. Every missed school pickup, every time Ethan raised his voice during a call, every lie. When Ethan brought Layla back one weekend, Maya noticed her daughter's face looked tense. Later that night, Layla said, "Daddy told me you don't love him anymore. He said you made him leave." Maya felt her heart twist, but she smiled softly and said, "Sometimes people say things when they feel like they're losing control, but I love you more than anything. That will never change." Maya knew this wasn't just a legal battle. It was emotional warfare. She was not fighting with fists or fire. She was fighting with facts, with patience, and with love. Ethan had money and pride, but Maya had truth and a daughter watching her every move. And even though the nights were long and heavy, Maya never broke. She had already survived the hardest part, being unseen for years in her own home. Now, the world would see her, and she would make sure Layla never had to grow up thinking silence was the same as peace. The courtroom was quiet, filled with tense air and waiting eyes. Ethan sat confidently on the witness stand, dressed in a sharp grey suit. He wore that familiar smile, calm, proud, too sure of himself. To everyone watching, it looked like he was winning. Maya sat beside her lawyer, Cynthia, dressed simply in blue. Her eyes didn't move from Ethan. She didn't blink. She didn't smile. She just watched. Cynthia stood and walked toward Ethan with quiet power. "Mr. Foster," she began, "can you explain the transfer of $150,000 to an account in the Cayman Islands?" Ethan shifted in his seat. "I don't know what you're talking about." She raised her hand and clicked a remote. A screen behind her came to life, showing bank documents with his signature, Ethan's name, the amount, the date. "Is that not your name?" she asked again. Whispers spread around the room. Ethan's lawyer leaned in, whispering something urgent, but Ethan waved him off. "It's a business account," he said finally. "A private investment." "Interesting," Cynthia said smoothly, "because the account is in the name of Alana Brooks, your assistant." Silence. Gasps echoed. Even the judge raised an eyebrow. Maya didn't move. Cynthia stepped closer. "And during this period, were you or were you not involved in a personal relationship with Miss Brooks?" Ethan hesitated. His jaw tightened. "That's irrelevant. Not when your pre-nuptial agreement says otherwise. She walked back to the table and picked up a folder. Your Honor, may I present an amended prenup agreement, signed and notarized, dated 3 years ago, during a dinner at a property investors event. In it, Mr. Foster agreed that if infidelity could be proven, Mrs. Foster would retain full custody of the child, and all shared assets would be legally frozen until reviewed by the court. The judge looked surprised. Ethan looked like someone had pulled the floor from under him. I never, he started. You signed it, Cynthia interrupted. You were drunk, but you signed it, and your signature is here, with a witness. Would you like to know who the witness was? A pause. The courtroom doors opened, and in walked Alana. Everyone turned. Ethan's face lost all colour. She walked calmly to the front and took her place on the witness stand. She didn't look at Ethan. She looked at Maya and gave a small nod. Cynthia smiled lightly. Miss Brooks, please tell the court how you came into contact with Mrs. Foster. I reached out to her, Alana said, her voice steady. I didn't want to be the reason a family broke apart. When I realized he lied to both of us, I told her everything. And since then, I've been working with her attorney to collect the proof you're seeing today. The room was frozen. Alana continued. I gave access to every email, every transaction, every gift he bought through the company account. Ethan told me he was divorced already. He promised me a future. I was a fool, but I wanted to make it right. Ethan's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Foster, this is a serious matter. You may wish to speak with your counsel before continuing. Ethan dropped his head. Cynthia turned to Maya. Gently, she whispered, We're done here. Maya exhaled softly, not out of relief, but from years of holding her breath. She had waited for this moment. The truth had spoken, loud and clear, and this time, Ethan had nothing left to say. The court gave its final decision on a quiet Thursday morning. Maya stood in front of the judge, holding Layla's hand. Ethan sat on the other side, pale and silent. The judgment was clear, full custody to Maya. Ethan would be allowed supervised visits, no more than twice a month. Maya didn't cry. She only squeezed Layla's hand gently and whispered, We're going home. News of the courtroom drama spread like wildfire. Ethan's name began to disappear from the business scene. One by one, his partners distanced themselves. His company lost contracts. Clients walked away. His name was no longer one to trust. Maya moved out of the old house and into a smaller, peaceful townhome. It wasn't big, but it was hers. It was close to a good school, and Layla made new friends quickly. Maya painted Layla's room in soft yellow and bought her a little bookshelf for all her favorite stories. She didn't go back to a big law firm. Instead, she chose something better. She started offering legal services from home, helping women understand their rights, writing contracts, giving advice. Her name grew among small women's groups and church networks. Soon, women from shelters reached out to her. Maya would sit with them, sometimes late into the evening, teaching them how to take back control of their lives. She told them, You don't have to shout to fight, just know the law and stand firm. Many of them were surprised by her strength, but Maya would smile and say, I wasn't always like this. I learned. Her life was calm, simple, free. Every morning she packed Layla's lunch and walked her to the school gate. They laughed on the way. Layla no longer drew broken homes in her notebook. Now she painted sunrises, happy faces, and bright homes with gardens. And Ethan, he stayed in the city, inside a high-rise condo filled with things he bought but no one to share them with. He had whiskey on the table, takeout boxes on the counter. He watched the news alone, barely recognized in public anymore. Once a man full of pride, now he sat alone on his leather couch, staring at a framed photo of Layla from years ago. A daughter he no longer knew, a woman he thought he could break, who had instead broken free. He lost everything because he never thought she could fight back. And Maya? She didn't just win, she rose. The sun was setting, casting a warm orange glow across the sky. Maya sat on the front porch of her new home, a cup of tea in her hand. The breeze was soft, peaceful, the kind of evening that made you feel thankful just to be alive. Layla came out barefoot, holding something behind her back. She looked a little shy, but her eyes were bright. Mummy, she said, I made you something. Maya smiled. You did. Layla nodded and handed over a folded piece of coloured paper. Maya opened it slowly. It was a birthday card, drawn with crayons and coloured pencils. At the top, in Layla's neat handwriting, it said, to the strongest woman I know. Below was a drawing of Maya wearing a crown, standing beside Layla, both of them smiling under a big tree with birds flying above. Maya's heart filled. She looked at her daughter, pulled her close, and kissed her forehead. "Thank you, my darling. This is the best birthday gift I've ever received." They sat together on the porch steps, side by side, watching the sky change colors. Layla leaned her head on Maya's shoulder. The neighborhood was quiet. No shouting, no heavy footsteps, no fear, just peace. Maya looked out at the fading sun and smiled to herself. She had been through fire. She had been doubted, controlled, pushed aside, but she had found her way out, not just for herself, but for her daughter too. She didn't need a crowd to clap for her victory. The only applause she needed was this moment, this quiet joy, this small, safe life she had built with her own hands. As the camera pulled back, showing mother and daughter framed by the soft light of evening, Maya's voice echoed gently in the background. Some endings are gifts in disguise, and sometimes the best present is finally saying goodbye. And with that, the screen faded to black. Hi besties, thank you so much for watching to the end. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.